Welcome back to Be Rich. One of the great paradoxes that is happening here in the currency market is something which nobody in India seems to have picked up. And at least I didn't read it anywhere in the newspapers. In the last 1 month, the Japanese yen has been sliding and sliding big time. The currency has lost 7% of its values. Normally, when a major currency loses 7% of its value, major pandemonium breaks out. I am talking about the Japanese currency. Japan is one of the largest economies of the world and at least is twice as big as India's economy. And Japanese currency is a very important currency. At one time, about 30 years ago, they thought that the Japanese yen could be a reserve currency. But all that was before the crash of 1989. The Japanese currency yen has gone up to 90 yen to a dollar and has spent some time in its 80s. But ever since the market crashed, the Japanese economy has been in serious trouble. The Central Bank of Japan has tried desperately to bring some inflation into Japan and try to stimulate the economy. Unfortunately, this has not happened. Even after the pandemic, when prices of laptops of the same brand were compared between Tokyo and America, it was found that the laptop prices in America were more expensive than in Tokyo. For all the effort they did, the inflation never seemed to have come to Japan. Now, what has caused this dramatic devaluation in the price of the Japanese currency? Well, the Japanese central bank does not want the value of its bond to go up because that would mean that it would crush any nascent growth that is there in the Japanese economy. And there is very little inflation in Japan. So the Japanese central bank is working overtime to keep its bond yields very low to negative. It does not want its consumers and its retail investors to hoard cash. They are trying their best to encourage the Japanese individual to spend their money. But this crisis over last 40 years has affected Japan greatly. In fact, Japanese has stopped having children and has led to a lot of social problems in Japan, and Japan is facing a declining population, in part due to its great miracle growth, and also in part to the fact that in last 40 years they have not been able to stimulate the economy, and seems to be no hope for the Japanese. All this has meant that the policies followed by the rest of the Western world and Japan have diverged. In America, inflation seems to have turned in full gusto. Inflation is at its highest level in 40 years. Even America has been struggling to get some inflation going for the last 20 years. The economists felt at one time that they had conquered this inflation demon forever and had reached a magic state where they could tune the market to perfection. It did not happen, and inflation has started to surge and surge big time in the United States, in Britain, and in the rest of Europe. In fact, Germany's Bund or the government bond yields has gone from minus zero point 0.6 to plus zero point 0.6 in matter of few months. Even there is some inflation in Germany, and this has worried the Bundesbank. The Bundesbank, by constitution, is mandated to crush the economy. Of all the developed world, Japan seems to be the only outlier where major inflation has not come to Japan. So, what has happened is England has already increased its prices twice. That is, the Bank of England has increased the short term rates twice, and still inflation is not under control. Also, America has increased its rate by 0.25 and is now promising to act hawkishly to control inflation because since they were still expanding the balance sheet, the 0.25 increase in interest rate has not had much effect either on inflation or asset prices. In fact, commentators like Larry Summers have said the Americans have acted too little and too late, and therefore, the only solution is that there has to be a sledgehammer approach from the Federal Reserve, and in order to crush inflation. This has meant that all the dollars which were in the rest of the world have started to move back to America. This is why over the last 5 months, several billion dollars of assets have flown back into the United States, thus strengthening the dollar. And since both the central banks in the Federal Reserve and the Bank of Japan are following divergent policies, in one case, interest rates are being increased aggressively, and the short term treasury rates have moved to 2.5 from being less than 1.5 a few months ago. This has meant that the Japanese, who have tried to keep their bond yields low by buying assets directly in the market, has meant that the yen has been dumped and all yen based assets have been dumped. This has meant that the yen has dramatically reduced in value, and this has been the worst loss in Japanese yen in a short period of time since 2016. This is nearly 6 years. Normally, the Japanese government should be very happy with the way things have progressed. This means Japanese exports will be cheaper, and this means that some inflation will be imported into Japan. But the rate of fall of the yen has been too steep for comfort to the Japanese finance ministry, and so there is an expectation that the Japanese ministry may intervene in the market in support of the yen. This will happen when they will ask the Bank of Japan to sell some of the dollar holdings they have. Japan has a huge reserve of US dollars. By selling US dollars, they hope to stabilize the value of the yen. Let us see what happens. But in the long term, if over the next 1 year the divergence continues, one expects yen to go far cheaper. Thank you for watching. Be rich. If you like this video, kindly hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell notification. If you do not turn on the bell notification, you will not be notified every time we put out a video. If you do like the content, kindly share among your friends and relatives. Once again, I thank you for supporting Be Rich. I have written two books in English, The Alchemy of Money and Ordinary Stocks, Extraordinary Profits. These books are published by us and are ready. If you want to procure a copy, send us a message to the WhatsApp number given below and my team would respond to you. If you want an Amazon Kindle copy, you can click the link below. Finally, those who wish to consult with me can send a mail to berichenglish@gmail.com. Once again, I thank you for your support.